All right. Back to where I'm comfortable. We're back on StreamYard. Oh my goodness. I love Ecamm. It's the battle between Ecamm and StreamYard right now. I did not even get an opportunity to read our like super chats and things of the like. So for anybody that dropped a super chat in the last stream, sorry about that. But I was having some issues with projecting the documents that were unsealed. Regardless, we are going to pull up those documents in a place where I know I can absolutely share them. So we will do that in just a sec. Gonna pop on in and go from there. So bring in the PDF. I think it's this one. No, that's the wrong one. We're gonna bring in a new PDF. You gotta build it as you fly it, chat. You really do. Okay. It's back here as Unsealed 2. Here we go. Unsealed 2 in StreamYard. Okay, back to where we were. All right, finally, I can screen share properly, but let's do this the right way and go from there. Okay, so we were looking at all the different witnesses that had mentioned some discrepancies that they had found. Okay. I think we were at the obstetricianist or yes, we were around witness 2. I think there's 7 or 8 altogether. 3 was a current White House appointed state election board member, confirmed that there were missing ballot images, things of the like, right? When she was not aware of a clerical issue or a technical issue in which the images would be lost if that did occur, and it should have been documented, but it was not. Next, they said that they would remedy the missing ballot images with physical ballots, and those were needed to conduct a hand recount of the physical ballots, right? That's witness 3. Witness 4, who was the director of elections for the Georgia Secretary of State in 2020, was not aware of physical ballots not matching the number of ballot images. Witness 4 said a discrepancy like that would be problematic, but didn't know if anybody went back and checked that. Witness 4 also said that during the hand count, they did not audit for issues like image discrepancies, which is a big problem. Why are we not looking for image discrepancies? He said images are just duplicates. It would be more concerning if there was discrepancies between physical ballots and voter count. The concern is less about the images and more about the ballots and voter count. Following the recount, the Georgia Secretary of State conducted a full recount of Fulton County's ballots. When the Secretary of State conducted the recount, they did not focus on the images taken by the scanners. This is all about those images. They took the actual ballots that were cast and counted them one by one to come up with the total. Witness 4 stated a possible explanation for missing images was that they were stored on a memory card and it was not uploaded correctly and became corrupt. That would account for the missing images. During a civil action in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections admitted it has not preserved the majority of ballot images from in-person voting for the November election original count. This is another impediment to ruling out non-criminal explanations for the activities during the election. So we have that section was all about ballot images. Next, we are getting to a section that talks about duplicated ballots. We pick it up with witness 5, who's a data analyst who reviewed and analyzed original ballot images and recount ballot images. Witness 5 stated that he downloaded the data from ZebraDuck and believed it was from an open records request from Fulton County, but was not positive that he was not a part of acquiring that data. Witness 5 received the data secondhand. So we have some secondhand data with witness 5. They used a computer program that reviewed the ballot images to look for duplicates. It was looking for stray marks and other unique markings on the ballot that would allow it to be uniquely identified. He would then review the duplicate to confirm. Witness 5 said that based on the number of reported votes cast, there were images missing in the files he reviewed. However, none of the missing images were from hand-completed ballots. The only missing ballot images were from in-person computer-generated ballots, which contain a QR code. In the election, a QR code was generated to reflect the unique combination of all votes cast on the ballot. In other words, if two voters made identical votes down the ballot, the QR codes would be identical for both voters. Because these ballots were computer generated, he could not identify duplicated ballots based on examining them for unique stray marks or other attributes to the ballot. For that reason, images of in-person ballots were inconsequential to his review. Witness 5 concluded that there were duplicate ballots included in both the original count and the recount. Further, Witness 5 identified new ballots as well as test ballots in the recount that did not appear in the original recount. Witness 5 said that there were 17,000 digital images of ballots missing from the recount data that he reviewed. He concluded that it was suspicious that the missing image files were deleted at approximately the same time the duplicate votes began appearing in the system. So we have missing ballots, missing digital images, and when this bulk deletion happened, it was approximately the same time the duplicate votes started appearing in the system. What is going on? So witness 5 is going to be very important to this investigation. Based on his review, 5 included that he observed what he could, sorry, let me say that again. 5 concluded that what he observed could be intentional, but was not partisan. 5 explained that adding the duplicate ballots, by adding those ballots, Donald Trump received approximately 10% more than his average in Fulton County. Wow. 40% instead of 30%. This indicated to Witness 5 that the introduction of duplicate ballots was intended to make the recount numbers match more than to affect the outcome of the election. Such action would have been an intentional tabulation of ballots in a false manner in violation of 20511, like we talked about in the last stream that unfortunately was a shit show. Next, Witness 6. Witness 6 is a former investigator of the Secretary of State's office and said that the complaint of the duplicate ballots was investigated by tallying ballots by hand for the presidential race. No further investigation was conducted once the investigators learned that 40% of the duplicate ballots cast were for Trump. The investigators concluded it was not intentional misconduct. All right, let me read that again. A former investigator for the Secretary of State's office said that the complaint of duplicate ballots was investigated by tallying ballots by hand for the presidential race. No further investigation was conducted once the investigators learned that 40% of the duplicate ballots cast a vote for Trump. So the investigation is stopped. They also concluded that it was not intentional misconduct. So now we go back to 5. 5 stated he found similar issues of ballots being introduced during the recount to make the total numbers match those obtained during the original count in other counties throughout Georgia. In its response to the Secretary of State's investigation, the Fulton County Director of Registration and Elections, who took over following the 2020 election, admitted that duplication of ballots may have occurred, but indicated that if it did occur, it happened due to human error. I don't know, chat. What do you think? Human error? It's so interesting how that happens. I just don't know why we can't count correctly. You know, it shouldn't be so hard to count these ballots. Sorry, y'all. Just realized that we were not screen sharing. Yeah, I think they need to be counting these things correctly, and they weren't. So that is witness 5. Next, we come to tabulator tapes. Tabulator tapes are printed for each voting machine once the machines are closed. The tabulator tapes indicate how many votes were received for each candidate on that particular machine and how many ballots were counted. Witness 3 stated that one issue that impacts the accountability process is whether tabular tapes are not signed in addition to election officials not preserving the ballot images. Witness 3 said ultimately the tabulator tapes should match the number of physical ballots. The tabulator tape is what is used as a holy grail for the final count. It's just so frustrating that all of this is going on. Georgia rules and regulations require that tabulation tapes be printed from each machine at poll closing. These tapes must be signed by the poll manager and 2 witnesses. Since at least 2003, Clay Pickra has worked in the cybersecurity field in both private sector and for government agencies. Since 2008, he has done security and performance testing of the voting machines. I think they did not, I don't think they redacted this guy's name. So now we know it's Clay. Due to his background in voting machine security and performance, Pickra has often asked to review data related to technical questions related to voting machines. Pickra is currently a special government employee, a temporary officer, and employee in the United States executive branch appointed to work for up to 130 days. Pickra received the tabulator tape images and related documents he obtained from the Fulton County Open Records request. Pickra was asked by Witness 7 to review the tabulator tapes and analyze them. Witness 7 is a member of the election oversight group and drafted a report regarding the 2020 election in Fulton County. Pickra determined that the closing tabulator tapes were missing for some machines and 138 closing tapes were provided by Fulton County in response to the open records request. Only 16 tabulators accounted for approximately, here it is, the 315,000 ballots. In his review, Pickra identified one tabulator that was used to close out 15 tabulator machines from 12 different locations. In addition, the poll closing time and report printed times on several closing tabulator tapes were close enough in time that Pickra believes someone had to have manipulated the times on the reports. What the hell happened in 2020? Pickra, I hope I'm saying that right. Pickra, I think it's Parikh believed that this showed the memory cards were removed from the original tabulator and put in another tabulator to print out the closing tabulator tapes. He also reviewed the protective counter number on the tabulator tapes. The protective counter is similar to the odometer on a vehicle. It counts the number of ballots tabulated on the machine for the machine's lifetime. Comparing the protective counter at the start of the election and at the end of the election, and comparing that change in the protective counter to the closing tapes helps ensure the integrity of the tabulation. His analysis further revealed that the protective counters on at least 5 tabulator tapes from the same unit were identical, and that some of the reported ballots scanned exceeded the protective counter number. This indicated to Pickra that no ballots were ever scanned on these machines, and that the numbers generated from those ballots were done so by placing an unencrypted memory card into the unit to generate the closing tape. What? This would have allowed an opportunity for the tabulation to be tampered with. Of all the closing tabulator tapes that he was provided with review based on the poll opening times and the locations appear to be from an in-person only early voting location. This is getting stressful. This is getting so stressful. Witness 6 stated tabulator tapes were specific to a particular scan of ballots by a specific machine. For instance, at issue here are the tabulator tapes from the 2020 election original count. The original tabulator tapes are not used during the recount. What? Because the ballots are scanned again utilizing a different machine. In the recount, a report is generated from the new machine scanning the ballots, and that is what is compared to the results of the original count to confirm the overall results. Witness 6 stated the tabulator tapes from the original count are not compared to the reports from the recount. 6 stated that the ballots are what mattered. From the Fulton County risk limiting audit, which was a hand count, 6 believes that all ballots were accounted for. During a standard risk limiting audit, only a small sample of ballots are counted to verify results. But in the 2020 election, all ballots were audited due to the closeness of race. During a December 9th, 2025 meeting, just about 2 months ago, before the state election board, Fulton County stated that tabular tapes accounting for 315,000 ballots were not properly signed. The Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, stated in the media he considered the unsigned tabular tapes as an administrative oversight. Oh my God, give it up for this guy, huh? An administrative oversight. What the hell are pristine ballots? Okay, a pristine ballot. When a voter elects to vote by absentee, the absentee ballot is mailed to the voter. When that ballot is returned either by mail or drop box, it must be sealed inside 2 envelopes with a properly authenticated signature. An absentee ballot must be folded to fit in the envelope. A pristine ballot, as described in further detail below, is an absentee ballot that has no indications that it has been folded and mailed as a typical absentee ballot would. As it pertains to pristine ballots, witness 3 stated that absentee ballots look different than in-person ballots. She said there's no reason to have a pristine ballot with no folds. She was unsure if provisional ballots get folded or not, but said they look different than absentee ballots. 1 also indicated in his complaints to the Georgia State Election Board allegations that extra ballots were introduced during the count of the absentee ballots. 8 was a poll manager during the 2020 election and had been a poll manager for over 25 years. She was asked to work during the risk limiting audit. In Fulton County, due to the election being so close, it was decided a full hand count would be conducted instead of the limited in-size risk limiting audit. 8 received the boxes of ballots that had broken security seals. Why? When she asked about the security seals, she was told by an unknown individual that they did not matter. This whole thing, guys, it's just giving me a headache. I mean, I don't understand why. It looks like I'm doing this without you guys following along, and I want you to follow along. So I'm just going to, I downloaded both PDFs. I think I'm on Unsealed too. Oh, thank God, I figured it out. Thank God we have figured this out. Unsealed too. Boom. Finally. Okay, let's jump in. We are back to regular scheduled programming with StreamYard. I was somewhere over here talking about the witnesses. We were around pristine ballots. Yes. You can see and hear me now. Wonderful. Okay. So we were around here. Okay. Yes, this is where I left off. So picking it up on 58 paragraphs, you guys haven't seen. Witness 8 recalled receiving 1 batch of ballots that contained 110 ballots. 8 said she noticed quickly that those ballots seemed different. Of the 110 ballots, 107 had the exact same votes for each candidate on the ballot. Wow. And if you really think about that too, like, is it going to be that similar throughout the entire thing? Sometimes you might vote for this potential candidate for president, but maybe for another role in the county, you might go somewhere else. Maybe you might pick someone else. Or sometimes, I mean, sometimes we all do it. You know, when you're looking at the ballot and you don't recognize the name, you're like, that one. It's impossible for 107 of them in a row to have the exact same thing. That's what we're seeing here. Oh my goodness. Oh man, K Bean, she says one of my favorite law tubers got demonetized for talking about this after the election. 107 vote, like all of those ballots to be the exact same in a row. This is really blowing my mind right now. I mean, wow. Let's keep going. These ballots were also pristine in that they had not been folded. She said the 107 were labeled as absentee ballots, but they were too clean to be absentee ballots, in her opinion. She also says that the texture felt different from the other ballots and the bubbles were all filled in the same. Oh no, chat. No. Something's not right here. 8 stated she also received a stack of about 60 ballots that were labeled having come from a senior living center. Believed that those ballots should have been folded well, but were not. Witness 8 also observed suspicious handling of ballots. She observed what she believed to be stacks of ballots on a table that was outside of security camera view, but she was too far away to view what, if anything, was printed on the ballots. She said she did not know where the ballots came from or what their purpose was. Witness 9 worked with 8 at the same table during the risk limiting audit. 9 recalled the 107 ballots that 8 did. 9 said the ballots looked like the selections had been made with a stamp. 9 stated that 8 would have a better recollection of the 107 identical ballots. 9 stated she saw 2 females who were revoting ballots. 10, the then director of elections for Fulton County Board of Registrations and Elections told her that they were having to revote the ballot because the original ballot was not being accepted by the machine. 9 said the paper they were using was different than the original ballots. 9 said she did not know why these ballots were being revoted now and not during the original count. Had the ballots audited by 8 and 9 been duplicated ballots of damaged or unscannable ballots, they could have been marked as such. Georgia law requires the duplication of ballots to be verified by witnesses, requires a duplicate ballot to be clearly labeled by the word duplicate, and requires that original ballot to be retained. Ford, who was the Secretary of State's election director in 2020, stated that Fulton County, that there would likely be thousands of different ballot combinations throughout the county. Right. Ford also explained if a worker wanted to take an absentee ballot and change the vote, they would have to produce another ballot. He said if someone was able to get a hold of a blank ballot, then it could be possible. However, Ford did not think it feasible that someone could tamper with absentee ballots due to how many people are in the room. He said it would take a tremendous amount of organization and secrecy. He said it may be possible for somebody to quickly introduce one ballot, but to do anything on a large scale would be barely impossible. However, Ford stated there's no way to determine if someone within the process of counting votes substituted fictitious ballots for real ballots if the ballot total matched the number of votes accounted for in absentee ballots. On the other hand, Ford explained that if 100 extra ballots were introduced without removing real ballots, that would be caught during the reconciliation process by comparing ballots to total voters. Ford was not aware of any discrepancies between voters counted and ballots counted. Four explained that there would be pristine absentee ballots in every election. These ballots would be generated by the vote review panel every time they adjudicated a damaged ballot. A new pristine ballot would be the ballot created and used to count that individual's vote. Witness 6 was the investigator for the Georgia Secretary of State's office in 2020 and had been since 2009. 6 received and investigated multiple complaints during the election. 6 said that if somebody were to sneak in fraudulent ballots, the number of ballots versus the people who voted would not be equal. In addition, he did not know how someone would get a hold of a ballot because there were not extra ballots sitting around. Yeah, like where would they even get them from? He described how there were provisional ballots available on election day, but all of those had to be accounted for. The current Fulton County Commissioner, witness 11, I believe this might be Mr. Pitts, was a poll worker during the 2020 election. Prior to the election, it says she was asked to assist with logic and accuracy testing on the voting machines. Logic and accuracy testing is the pre-election testing where test ballots are tabulated to ensure all the machines are working accurately. While doing logic and accuracy testing, this commissioner was assigned to the test ballot printing station where they printed the test ballots to run through the machines. 11 stated that there were stacks of paper used as test ballots that were unsecured. She stated she could have printed any ballot she wanted. 11 witnessed individuals who were printing random ballots. She was able to rip up some of the ballots. Oh my goodness, this is a mess. She was not sure the reason they were printing ballots, as all the test ballots had already been printed. While she was in the warehouse conducting the test, she stated the voting machines with ballots came in from an early voting location at the State Farm Arena. Her belief was those were the actual voted ballots. 11 said that those ballots were removed from the machines and were unintended for a period of time before they were gathered in ballot cases. Witness 6 did not know how a person could possibly inject fraudulent absentee ballots into the absentee ballot process. 6 stated that the Secretary of State's office also counted Fulton County's ballots, and the number they matched was what was given by Fulton County. I'm tired now. I mean, wow. Like, what is happening with these ballots? 170 of them just identical. Same person you voted for, same thing. Somebody else is just like, oh yeah, all these ballots are just printed out. I didn't say anything. Like I didn't do anything about it. I just watched. What? Oh, this is such a mess. Why is voting so difficult in Fulton County? And like the nerve, everybody's like in front. Last 2 weeks, everybody's screaming how it's clean elections, best place to vote. I don't even trust my last vote. Did y'all count it right? You guys were still going back and forth in 2022 and in 2024 and recounting things from the beginning. Why is it so difficult? Oh my goodness, this is so crazy. Oh, there's another report. Guys, we're on like section 7 of this FBI agent's affidavit on all the evidence stating why they collected and seized all of those ballots. I have such a headache. We're on the second stream. We're on the second stream, goddammit. And all of these problems are coming up. Let's go to the Seven Hills Strategies report, because there's another report. Seven Hills Strategy was contracted by the Georgia State Election Board to serve as an independent, nonpartisan monitor for the pre-electoral processes of Fulton County leading up to 2020. Seven Hills published its report, and it was a post-election executive summary. Noted in the report was that Fulton County's absentee processes were extremely sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues. Let me repeat that. Extremely sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues. I swear to God, I want to pull the clip right now of these county officials assuring voters that your vote was safe. It was done right. We don't know why they're digging this up. An independent contractor came in and said these words: extremely sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues. Oh my word. The report found that during the risk limiting audit, there were chain of custody issues, ballots left unattended, unsealed bags being used, auditors not recording seal numbers on ballot bags. The report found that during the recount, ballots of different types have been mixed together for storage. Stop it. I have to go. Mixed together for storage? This resulted in additional rounds of scanning during the recount because the wrong ballots were scanned on 2 separate occasions. Ballots were also stored in boxes with no precinct information. What? This became an issue when they had to retrieve particular batches that had been overlooked during scanning. It further became an issue when trying to ascertain which ballots had been misused because 2 scanners had both been named. Oh my goodness, listen, look, we got to read that again. It further became an issue when trying to ascertain which ballots had been missed because 2 scanners had both been named ICC 16. On August 18th, like 9 months after the election, pursuant to a request of the General Assembly, the State Election Board appointed a performance review board. The duty of the performance review board was to make a thorough and complete investigation of local election officials with respect to all action of the election official regarding the technical competency in the maintenance and operation of election equipment, proper administration and oversight of registration and elections in compliance with state law regulations. The Performance Review Board stated Secretary of State investigators who investigated complaints during the November general election and Fulton County elections had similar findings to the Seven Hills Strategy Report. No evidence of fraud, dishonesty, or intentional misconduct, but persistent disorganization that made it difficult to get to the bottom of certain claims. Our review reaches a similar conclusion. We do not see any evidence of fraud, intentional misconduct, or large systematic issues that would have affected the result of the election. This is the Performance Review Board saying that. All right, from 2021. The election records location. We're wrapping up. We're getting to the last page here. The election records identified in attachment B and sought by this warrant are currently located at a warehouse facility operated by the Fulton County Board of Registration Elections. The warehouse is located at this address in Fairburn. According to Fulton County, the election records still exist at that location. While the election records are normally subject to destruction 2 years following the election, the Fulton County Superior Court has ordered that the records related remain under seal. Conclusion. How do we conclude this? And remember, this is an affidavit from an FBI agent out of Atlanta. If these deficiencies were a result of intentional action, the election records identified in attachment B are evidence. Seizure of those records would corroborate the analysis that evinces the election records were destroyed or that the tabulation of votes included materially false votes, either through duplicated scanning of specific ballots, interjection of pristine ballots, or other methods described above. I request that the court issue the proposed search warrant. I further request that the court order that all papers in support of this application, including the affidavit and search warrant, be sealed until further order of the court. These documents discuss an ongoing criminal investigation that is neither public nor known to all of the targets of the investigation. Accordingly, there is good cause to seal these documents because the premature disclosure may seriously jeopardize the investigation, including by giving targets an opportunity to destroy or tamper with evidence. Change patterns of behavior, notify Confederates, and flee from prosecution. There it is. It's from Mr. Evans. I mean, he just laid down the hammer. I mean, because I had to do 2 streams, and if you're just joining us, I'm gonna have to review it again. I'm just gonna go through the sections. I'm not gonna read all 22 pages to you again. But I seriously, as somebody that's voted in Fulton County, I'm very concerned. What the hell is this? You have all of these witnesses, and then when the agent ends it in the affidavit, what? Of course the judge signed it. Like, of course the judge signed it. The judge signed it. Let's just review the sections again, just so we know what the judge had to see to be convinced that there was probable cause, right? So here we go. You know, we have the things to be seized. They wanted all records, the physical ballots, the tabular tapes, the ballot images, and the voter rolls. Now it makes sense, particularly from absentee early voting and things of the like. Because remember that big stack they were talking about, the 170 that were pristine ballots, just in amazing shape, no folds, none of that, just wonderful. Paper feels different, pristine ballots. So the warrant would authorize a review of all of that data. Okay, so that's what the FBI was asking for. And then you have this affidavit from Hugh Evans, special agent from Atlanta. Okay, he also has a law license. Okay, he was licensed by the Alabama State Bar, and he was in private practice, but he specifies that he has experience in public corruption and civil rights. Okay. Now he's talking about his background and experience, so we're going to skip all of that. The jurisdiction was proper. They talk about what probable cause is and why they have it. There's 2 laws that they are looking at that have been broken. 207-01, that is for records retention for 22 months. The second is 205-11. That makes it a crime to knowingly and willfully deprive the residents of your state of a fair and impartial election process. All right? They talked about their investigation, and it focuses on the deficiencies or defects with the 2020 election in the tabulation of votes. The defects meaning what were the problems that happened in Fulton County? The tabulation is how did we count everything up? Then they break down what a tabular machine does. Fulton County has confirmed that it's recounted many times. Then we go to the risk limiting audit. Then we go to auditors assisting in the risk limiting audit. And how the deadline to report those audits, they reported that there was 17,000 fewer than originally counted. And then all of a sudden, the following day, it shot up to 500,027, 925. How did it shoot up in a day? What happened there? So the FBI breaks it down and they include witness statements here. The first section is missing ballot images. You have witness 1 corroborating that. You have witness 2 corroborating that. So there's 2 witnesses in this section talking about their experience. Witness 3, witness 4. That's the first section. Missing images. Next, duplicated ballots. Why? Witness 5 is all up in this section. Tabulator tapes. We're learning about how the tabulator tapes work. 3 is back in this section. 7 enters the chat. Then we talk about the 315,000 ballots that were unsigned, in addition to everything else we just talked about. Wow. Pristine ballots. Pristine ballots, I think, is the most eye-opening for me. One of these poll managers working for 25 years. Pristine ballots, 107 had the exact same votes for each candidate on the ballot. That's impossible. I'm so sorry. That is impossible. 107 votes the exact same way in a row. In a row like that, that's, I mean, something happened here. Chat, something happened here. And then 60 of them come from a senior living center. Are all seniors, we all have our grandparents, are all seniors gonna vote the exact same way? I have seniors in my family that will have shouting matches during, Christmas and holidays, and like, there's no way they all voted the same. I don't believe that. I can't. I'm so stressed out. And sorry, guys, for those that are just coming in right now, we've already ran through this. There is another document too, but I'm going through the sections. We're gonna go to the next one, but yeah, Seven Hill Strategies is saying, where was the quote? That ballots were left unattended, unsealed bags being used, auditors not recording seal numbers on ballot bags. For them to call Fulton County extremely sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues. And then literally the day of this raid, they're like, chain of custody issues. Chain of custody. Look at this. Sloppy and replete with chain of custody issues. 2 scanners had been named the same thing. Which ballots had been missed because 2 scanners had been named the same thing, ICC 16. So if you are a judge reading all of this, you get through all 22 pages of this document and you get to the conclusion. Chat, what do you think? Is there probable cause here? Was there probable cause? Put a 1 if you think that there was probable cause. Put a 2 if you think there wasn't. I don't know. There are some shenanigans happening here. They're really okay. I'm seeing some probable causes come in. We're seeing probable cause. I didn't think that reading this was going to piss me off so much. I really didn't think. I don't see a single 2. I don't see a single 2 yet. So that is the first one. The second one, I think, has more in it. And for those that are just coming in, let me open that on a new tab. This one is very similar, but what's happening is that there are, you can't even make this up. With this one, there are other things that are missing, like boxes of ballots that are suddenly missing. I don't get how this happens. multiple boxes missing after this rate. Let's open this one up and take a peek. But I think it might be the same thing with just different. It's actually the same document. So chat, I'm happy that we came back and did this again. I had to, we did, for those that were in our first stream, I was having some technical difficulties. This software that I'm using right now is called StreamYard. I was trying to transition to a new one called Ecamm, and I've been working with Ecamm behind the scenes to make sure everything is functioning properly and things of the like, just because Friday is a big day. Friday, we have the Nathan Wade hearing. So I wanted to make sure all of this was functioning correctly. So for those that stuck with me, number one, thank you. I want to give a huge, huge, huge shout out to EC. EC, I saw your super chat before, but because we were in new software land, I could not pull it up. But she sent $100 super chat. That really does mean so much to me and my team. Like, we work really hard, like keeping up with the news is difficult, and, editing and getting all this software down. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I can even notice in the StreamYard, we upgraded our lighting this weekend to get ready for Friday. Like there's all types of software everywhere. So EC, thank you so much. And if you guys could do me a favor and type EC in the chat to show her how much we appreciate her, that would be huge. It's like I said, I think when I went live earlier, it was like 1,500 people watching. And then I started fucking up and then they all left. I was like, okay, with this here, this software, I've been using this software since I started streaming. So maybe like 3 or 4 years. So I could use StreamYard with my eyes closed. But learning something new is definitely a learning curve. And it boiled down to screen sharing and not being able to scroll. Like, that's it. The rest of it was fine. So no issues there. There's a few people that popped in where I am able to catch super chats in this software. Shout out to Miss Crotty Shetty, who gives 5 AV to the 7 Power memberships. Thank you so much, Miss Crotty Shetty. She's been with me forever. It's so good to see you. And if you received a membership from her, please say thank you. We are a giving group over here. So I always love live streaming. You know what? I might actually just stick with StreamYard for Friday. Like, honestly, chat, like I want Friday to go off without a hitch. So we might stick around with that. Shout out to D with the 5, says it's not about votes, but who counts the votes? Joe Stalin. I mean, who counts the votes? Who's counting them? Shout out to Chris. Good to see you, Chris. And thank you for all of the communication and participation in all the videos recently. He drops a 5 and says, I've witnessed elections in Colombia and Peru. When you vote, they check your ID and make sure it matches what the government has on file, all done in one day. And now, I just, I ordered something recently and my ID needed to be scanned. And, I'm in Massachusetts, but I have a Georgia driver's license. So now you can even scan these IDs and use like the code that's on the back. It's so easy. But after reading what we just read, chat, I can't. I'm stressed out. I'm so stressed out. But thank you so much, Chris. Shout out to K Bean, who became a member. Thank you, K Bean. And thank you for sticking with us these past few hours trying to read all these things. And you guys are amazing. Everybody's like, hey, you're doing great. Some of you guys want to see the warrant. What I will do is this. I'm going to drop the docket as a, for you guys sticking with me, I will drop the docket in the chat right now. Okay. And I will also, if you're watching this in the future, I will put this in the description box as well, just because of the interruptions of service with this. But there are 2 documents in there. The one that I just read you is, I believe, 22. And that's where you can read everything that I just read to you. So it has a search warrant. So you will see the actual search warrant up on top. The second thing that you'll see is the affidavit from the FBI person that petitioned to the judge, so the agent that petitioned to the judge that they had probable cause, and the judge signed it. She agreed that there was probable cause to seize these ballots. Now, I tell you guys that I have a friend that works for the FBI, and we talked about this in depth last week. We were talking about search and seizure, when it's appropriate, what the process is to bring it to a judge, what they have to satisfy as agents in their investigation in order for a judge to be convinced. Because here's the thing, search warrants aren't always accepted. The judge can deny the request because it's a right. It's Fourth Amendment. You know, you have a right to privacy. If you have a home, you have a right to what your belongings are in that dwelling. If the government is going to perform a search or even a seizure, because a search is looking around for things, right? A seizure is taking those things. We all have rights. And the judge, their job is to make sure that both parties are protected. But if the law enforcement has probable cause to take those items from you for review, and that's the thing that's so crazy about this, is that Fulton County, I swear, if you can go look at all of my last 3-4 videos, they have done press conferences saying that nothing bad happened. There's no problems here. We run fair, free elections, but go ahead, look at them. But then the chain of custody issues came up, and it's so funny that this other third party was like, yeah, well, your chain of custody is pretty bad. So it's like, do they not want us to see that? So in a way, I do think it's great that the government is opening these things up. The reason why this was unsealed is because a Georgia judge on Saturday unsealed it. And the government didn't oppose. They were like, go ahead, we have nothing to hide. So now that we are reading what these issues were, there are some problems. So here's the other thing that's coming up is 45 boxes, right? So in the search warrant, they had to revise the search warrant because there was one room missing that wasn't specified in the search warrant. You have to be very particular on what you're going to search and seize, right? So the FBI was able to make the quick change, and within the afternoon, they were able to go into that room and search and seize. Now, the issue is there were some labeling problems. When all of this happened, you have people outside doing the press conference saying that pallets were taken. And they were talking about how things were categorized, labeled as they were being taken away. So the boxes, right? There was a discrepancy, and we kind of heard it throughout the press conferences. And I heard it from a few of these commissioners was it's 600 boxes, 650, but then the total was around 700. So there are indeed boxes missing, but there is a fight right now to blame it on the FBI. Now, when you think about Quantico and FBI training, and again, I have a very close friend of mine that's gone through this. Crime scene processing is like top notch. They do a great job at crime scene processing. There was a sheet, and I'll see if I could pull it up on Twitter and do this in a future video. There was a sheet from Shay Alexander where they were kind of looking at what was taken, the documentation of it, and how it was moved. Right now, all those documents are in Virginia. If the government is being open, transparent, and showing what was taken, these are going to be interesting issues to review, right? So we already know, I think what was revealing about these documents is everything that gave them cause for them to seize it. But if there are boxes missing, what was in those boxes? Where are those ballots? Where were those ballots? And yes, spoke to a reporter this morning about Rob Pitt's statement. He made a statement last week, and I did not report on this because I didn't think it was ethical. But Rob Pitts mentioned that leading up to the seizure, that he had heard from a Washington insider that there were arrests coming. Now, I have a corporate communications background and a legal background. The first thing I did was go to see if any other um, media entities were reporting on that, and the national media entities were not reporting on it. So if they weren't going to take the risk, I wasn't going to take the risk. But it's important to note that, because if Rob Pitts is saying that publicly, you're also telling on yourself. Self-snitching. I mean, it's a little bit self-snitchy. It's kind of self-snitchy. Like, oh, I heard that arrests were coming, and I don't know if he was prepared or whatever the case may be. In my video yesterday, I told you guys, as we were looking at that body cam footage, they were lawyered up from the beginning. From the beginning. County attorneys were there. There are other people entering the docket on this case. So that link that I dropped, you guys should definitely check it out if you have a little bit of time. I just went through most of the second sections, but because of that glitch, I didn't go through the first document as much. Maybe we can salvage some of that footage, but struggle streaming, all right? Struggle streaming. But I appreciate you guys. Shout out to Charlie, who says there was an inventory given at the time of the seizure. It clearly states the number of boxes in each pallet and what they contain. Yeah. So now we have missing boxes, but again, these are rumors, right? I really want to see like the FBI's final review of this to say, here's what we took, here's what we found, here were the discrepancies, and we go from there. What this document does that I just showed you guys is it gives you the sections of what they're looking for. The duplicate ballots, the 107 that were apparently the same, the pristine ballots, the elderly home, people seeing ballots just hanging around and they're not monitored. They're outside of the view of security. Some of the issues with securing the ballots, things not being labeled correctly. And here's the thing, in 2020, a lot of people came out to vote, but a lot of people were still at home and they mailed in votes in mostly blue cities. So to see that too, you would think that it wouldn't be as busy as other years, right? And how were we able to handle the other years with no problem, but this one was a problem? So the test ballots, yes, KB, test ballots was interesting too. Whew. Oh man. Anyway, I have such a headache from that chat. We are back on Friday for the Nathan Wade thing. I'm going to work with my team to see how we can chop this up and make it more concise for the people that just want to see the quick and dirty 10-minute version of the FBI results or the unsealing documents that came out today. We're keeping a close eye on this. Next up is Nathan Wade testifying. And that is one thing I will give you guys a preview of. Let me just screen share it over here, because in StreamYard, I can screen share. Share this tab instead. I talked about this earlier today. This is the deposition of Nathan Wade in front of Congress on October 24th. Lots of I don't recalls in this document. It has been authenticated by the United States government, so they released it. I have been digging into it because a special thing that we might see on Friday, Roy Barnes, former governor, represented Nathan Wade in this proceeding. I was like, whoa. He also represented Fani Willis in the December hearing. So this Friday, do we see Roy again? Is the big question. So lots to think about, lots on what's going on. Thank you guys again for sticking with me with the glitch. Whew. But my mind is blown. Hopefully we can all figure out where these boxes are, because there's missing boxes of ballots. The FBI was very clear about what they were looking for and the issues that were surrounding the election and why they are looking for things. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. Stay safe out there. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Take care.